Back with another one, man. What if Goku landed in the Naruto world, episode 3, remastered? Alright, let's get to it. The massive ornate gates of Konoha stood as an imposing symbol of order and power, a stark contrast to the bloody, mist-shrouded chaos of the Land of Waves. For Team 7, their sight was a welcome homecoming. Naruto marched at the front, his chest puffed out with unbridled pride, already loudly composing his highly exaggerated retelling of the battle for anyone who would listen on the streets as they walked. And then I, the great Naruto Uzumaki, faced down the mist demon with my shadow clone jutsu, and he didn't stand a chance. And beside him, Sakura, though wary, wore a small, genuine smile of accomplishment on her face. Her gaze occasionally drifted into the injured but stable Sasuke, her concern for him mingling with her own sense of having survived a true ninja ordeal. They had faced the demon of the mist and lived. They were confident, their bond forged stronger than fire and ice. Bounding alongside them with unrestrained energy of a hyperactive puppy was Goku. His dark eyes were wide with open-mouthed wonder, darting from the towering Hokage monument to the bustling streets behind the gate. Wow, this place is huge. I bet there are so many strong people here. I can just feel it, he exclaimed, completely oblivious to the suspicious glances and murmurs his unfamiliar non-shinobi gi was attracting. To him, Konoha wasn't a military fortress. It was a brand new, exciting training ground filled with potential sparring partners and hopefully a new clue to his search. Trailing just a step behind Goku, a steady, stark contrast was Haku. His usual serene composure was replaced by a palpable anxiety, his hands clenched supplely at his sides. Every assessing glance from a leaf shinobi on a gate duty felt like a threat. Every fortified wall a new cage. He was a rogue weapon from a hostile nation, now walking voluntarily into the heart of a rival power. Even though he had been a rogue ninja, His only anchor was the spiky-haired boy in front of him, whose sheer guileless presence was a fragile shield against his fears. And at the rear of his unlikely procession, Hatake Kakashi walked with the heavy tread of a man already defeated by paperwork. His single visible eye crinkled in a profound sigh of exhaustion. He could already feel the mountain of mission reports, security debriefs, and awkward explanations waiting for him. How exactly did one explain the accusation of two rogue ninja-affiliated, immensely powerful teenagers, one of whom had blocked a Raikiri with a sword, and the other who possessed the Kekkei Genkai of creating ice? The third Hokage was a patient man, but this was stretching even the will of fire to its limit. This debriefing was going to be an unmitigated disaster, and all Kakashi wanted was to be back at the memorial stone, communing with a far simpler past. Well, simple but cruel past. The air in the Hokage's office was thick with the scent of old paper and tobacco smoke. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the silence between Kakashi's words. Lord Third, Hiruzen Sarutobi, listened with his steeple fingers pressed to his lips, his expression unreadable but for the deep gravities in his eyes. Kakashi stood before the large desk, his usual slouch replaced by a weary formal posture. He had just finished recounting the standoff with Zabuza and Haku with the intervention of a boy named Goku, and his own decisive move, the lightning cutter. It was at that moment, Lord Third, that the situation deviated entirely from any known parameter, Kakashi continued, his single visible eye fixed on the Hokage. The boy, Goku, moved. I cannot overstate this. His speed was not a shunshuin. There was no chakra flare, no displacement of air characteristics of some type of body flicker. It was a raw, linear burst of velocity that left a visible tear within the mist. He interposed himself between my technique and the other boy, Haku. Kakashi paused, the memory of the event sharp within his mind. He did not attempt to dodge or redirect the lightning cutter. He met it head on with a simple longsword. The blade shattered, of course, but the fact that it withstood the impact for even a couple seconds is a physical impossibility. The energy required to reinforce steel to that degree without the use of chakra, it shouldn't exist. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a more urgent, confidential tone. This is the core of the issue, Hokage-sama. He is entirely unnatural. During the entire confrontation, my senses, my training, everything told me he was a non-shinobi. I detected no chakra network, no circulation, no motable energy that was within him. He was a void, and yet he possessed a palpable, immense power that manifests through physical enhancement and raw, untamed energy that he admitted when he was exerting himself. Then Kakashi's eyes narrowed. He doesn't use hand signs. He doesn't seem to understand the fundamental principles of ninjutsu or genjutsu. When he fought Gato's men, it was a brawl, but a brawl on a level I've never seen. He moved faster than most eyes could track, shattering weapons with his bare hands, clearing a small army in moments with brute force and that unsettling non-chakra energy that was used. It's as if he operates on a completely different set of physical laws. He is a combat savant, able to dissect and counter movements with instinctual genius, but he is an enigma, a potential asset of unimaginable value, or a threat we have no existing framework to contain. My concern is that we are dealing with something alien to our very understanding of power within our world. The heavy wooden door of the Hokage's office closed with a soft, definitive thud, sealing Goku and Haku inside. The room was immense, dominated by a large desk behind the third Hokage sat, his kind yet penetrating eyes taking their measure. The air was thick with a silence that made Haku's skin prickle. He stood perfectly still, his head bowed in a respectful but deeply worried posture, every instinct screaming that he was a weapon laid bare on an enemy's examination table. "Welcome to Konoha," Hiruzen began, his voice a calm, rumbling baritone. Kakashi's report on you two was illuminating. Before Goku could launch into one of his characteristic exclamations, the Hokage gave a subtle nod to a man standing within the shadows of his office. The man stepped forward, and his pupils dilating as the veins around his eyes bulged. The Byakugan. Haku flinched imperceptibly as the Hyuga's gaze swept over him, feeling the intrusive sensation of his chakra network being mapped and analyzed. He felt exposed, a specimen under a microscope. Then the Hyuga's gaze turned to Goku. A long silent moment passed. The man's expression shifted from professional focus to a profound confusion, then to a stunned disbelief. He leaned closer. The Byakugan straining. "Lord Third," he finally murmured, his voice hushed. "The boy, Haku, possesses a refined and powerful chakra system as expected, but the other, Goku, I see nothing. No chakra pathways, no tenketsu. It's as if his body is solid, and yet he hesitated, choosing his words carefully in the presence of the subjects. There is a power there, a dense swirling energy entirely unlike chakra. It is likely not of this world." He fell silent, keeping the full, terrifying scope of that alien energy to himself. Throughout this, Goku remained completely oblivious to the gravity of the situation. "Hey, your eyes are really weird, mister," he said to Hyuga, before turning his beaming smile to Hiruzen. "And you must be the boss around here. Your village is amazing." Hiruzen puffed on his pipe, a small, genuine smile touching his lips at Goku's sheer, unvarnished audacity. He saw no malice, only boundless, untamed potential. "We will speak more of this different power in time," he said, his gaze lingering on Goku before shifting to the deeply uncomfortable Haku. "For now, rest. You are both guests of Konoha. An apartment has been prepared for you in the Eastern District." He saw the tension in Haku's frame and added gently, "But you are safe here. Consider this your new beginning." Haku merely bowed deeper, too overwhelmed to speak. Goku, however, grinned. "All right. Thanks, old man. I'm starving. Come on, Haku, let's go get some food." And with that, he practically bounded out of the office, pulling his silent, well-shocked friend behind him, leaving the Hokage to contemplate the enigma he had just welcomed into his village. The heavy oak door clicked shut, muffling the sounds of Goku's exuberant voice as it faded down the hallway. The moment the two boys were gone, out of earshot, the atmosphere in the Hokage's office snapped back to one of grave intensity. The third Hokage's kindly demeanor vanished, replaced by a sharp focus of a commander assessing an unprecedented threat. "Report. Hayashi," Hiruzen commanded, his voice low and steady. The Hyuga clansman, Hayashi, stepped fully into the light, the bulging veins around his eyes receding as he deactivated his Byakugan. He looked visibly unsettled, a rare crack in his composure of a main branch member. "Lord Third, the findings are inconclusive and slightly troubling," Hayashi began, choosing his words with the precision of a master analyst. "The one called Haku is straightforward. His chakra network is refined, powerful and flows with pure crystalline nature of the ice-release Kekkei Genkai. He is a prodigy, without a doubt, but he operates within the established paradigms of our world. He paused, gathering his thoughts as the Hokage and a now attentive Kakashi listened intently. The other, Goku, is definitely an anomaly. Hashi's brow furrowed. My Byakugan detected no chakra pathways, no tenketsu. It is not that they are undeveloped or are hidden. They are simply absent. His biological structure is fundamentally different to my dojutsu. His body appears as a solid, uniform mass of immense density, devoid of the energy channels that are the birthright of every living thing that is within our world. He looked directly at the Hokage, his expression stark. And yet he possesses power. When I focus past his physical form, I can perceive a latent energy swirling within him. It is not chakra, it is something else entirely, more volatile, more explosive. If I were to draw an analogy where our chakra is like a flowing river, his energy is a contained storm, raw and crackling with potential. The most alarming discovery, however, was at his core. Hashi's voice dropped to a near whisper. Deep within him, where shinobi's chakra would coalesce in their core, I did not see the familiar blue. Instead, I saw a pinpoint of intense, brilliant yellow coloration, and a sora, for lack of a better term. It was not malevolent, but it was alien, a source of power and biological component never before documented. The fact that he was completely oblivious to my examination, that he seems to have no conscious awareness of this unique network, suggests that his power is as natural to him as breathing. He is not a shinobi who uses a different technique. He is a different kind of person altogether, operating on a physiological principle that I do not quite understand yet. A heavy silence fell over the room. Kakashi's earlier suspicions were confirmed in the most terrifying way possible. This wasn't just a strange new talent, it was a paradigm shift. Hiruzen slowly filled his pipe, the scraping of the match unnaturally loud in the quiet. They had just welcomed a walking, talking, existential question into the heart of their very own village. And the only thing they knew for certain was that all their rules and all their understandings of powers might be completely irrelevant to the upcoming situation if things were to go awry. And yet, Hiruzen put on a genuine smile on his face and said, well, I guess it's a good thing that these boys are now Leaf Shinobi, huh? After being assigned a modest but clean apartment in the Eastern District, the two boys reacted to their new environment in ways that perfectly encapsulated their natures. For Goku, Konoha was a sprawling and exciting playground. He saw the training grounds not as strategic assets, but as personal challenges. His first order of business was to find the strongest, most interesting people he could. It didn't take long for his keen senses to lead him to one of the village's most distinctive training areas, where the clashing of weights, enthusiastic shouts was impossible to ignore. There, he witnessed a spectacle that made his Saiyan blood sing. A boy in a bright green jumpsuit, Rock Lee, moving with blinding speed and unleashing a whirlwind of kicks, while his bushy-browed sensei, Might Guy, cheered him on with explosive vigor. Goku's eyes lit up. Wow, you're pretty fast. How do you do it? He yelled, bounding into a clearing without a hint of ceremony. Within minutes, he had enthusiastically joined their regimen, trying to mimic Lee's movements to create after-images through pure, ki-enhanced velocity. He was a natural sponge for any form of physical combat, and Guy, seeing the raw, untamed potential and magnificent zest for youth in the boy, welcomed him with a booming yosh and a thumbs up that sparkled in the sun. Haku, in stark contrast, lingered at the edge of the training ground, a silent shadow amidst the exuberance. His eyes, however, were not on the impressive display of taijutsu that was before him. They were constantly moving, scanning the periphery. He noted the flicker of movement within the tree line, the faint shimmer of a masked face observing from a high rooftop, the presence that lingered just out of sight but never truly left them, the Anbu. To Goku they were invisible, his focus singularly on training and his next meal. But to Haku, a product of the brutal shinobi underworld, their constant surveillance was a cold, ever-present reminder of their precarious status. He was a weapon from Kiri, sitting in the heart of the leaf. Every masked face was a potential executioner, every silent observer a judge. He didn't train, he stood guard, his body a tense shield, his mind constantly calculating escape routes and threats, protecting the one person who was blissfully, dangerously unaware of the prison their new home could become within a moment's notice. if things went south. As the days bled into weeks, a fragile routine established itself. While Goku treated every sunrise as a new chance to challenge himself and anyone within earshot to a spar, Haku's approach was one of a quiet, intense study. He began to accompany Goku during his frequent uninvited visits to Team 7's training sessions. While Goku would loudly pester Kakashi for a rematch or try to copy Naruto's shadow clone jutsu through sheer futile force of will, Haku was a silent observer. He didn't just watch the flashy techniques, he analyzed the fundamentals. He studied the way Sakura's chakra control allowed her to walk up trees, the precise chakra emissions the Uchiha used for his fireball jutsu, and the tactical hand signals Kakashi employed. He saw these not as skills to emulate, but as a language to decipher on his own. He became a ghost in Konoha's libraries and archives. Under the guise of a curious refugee, he devoured texts of shinobi history, village law, and foundational ninja arts. He cross-referenced maps of the village with his own mental notes of Anbu patrol routes. He memorized the chain of command, the major clan symbols, and the documented abilities of every Jonin that was on display. This wasn't just an academic curiosity, it was survival. Haku was reverse engineering the entire system of Konoha from the inside. He studied espionage to understand how he was being watched. He learned about interrogation techniques to prepare for the day he might be subjected to them. Well, at least he did this with the information that was available, because obviously they wouldn't leave everything in the open. He pored over scrolls on genjutsu and sensory techniques, searching for their weaknesses, for a way to hide should the village's hospitality turn into hostility. Every piece of knowledge was a potential tool, not for attack, but for defense. He was building a mental fortress, ensuring that if the Leaf ever decided that they were a threat, he would be ready to protect Goku, not just with his ice, but with the one weapon Konoha had given him access to: information. His gentle demeanor around Goku never faltered, but behind his kind eyes the mind of a master strategist was tirelessly at work, deconstructing the very village that sheltered them. The tension in the air was as thick and heavy as the humidity before a storm. Team 7 alongside Haku found themselves face to face with the newly arrived and intimidating Genin from the hidden sand. The confrontation escalated swiftly. Kankuro, the puppeteer, had taken a threatening step towards Haku after he had freed Konohamaru from his grasp, his condescending tone dripping with malice. "What's a pretty little thing like you doing here getting involved?" Pause. "You look weak." Before anyone else could intervene, a black gi blur shot between them. Shoom! With a powerful kick that echoed with a crack of splintering wood, Goku sent Kankuro's still-wrapped puppet Karasu flying from his grasp. It was perfect, if unrefined, imitation of Rock Lee's dynamic entry. "Hey, why don't you leave him alone?" Goku declared, landing in a low offensive stance. His fists were clenched, not with killer intent, but with the pure, unadulterated excitement of the potential new fight that was to come. His dark eyes sparkled with challenge, completely missing the political ramifications of attacking a foreign shinobi. "If you want someone to fight, why don't you fight me then?" It was at this precise moment, that Gaara, who had been silent, an unsettling statue until now, spoke. His voice was flat, emotionless, monotone, that nonetheless cut through the scene like a blade. "Kankuro, stop." Kankuro froze immediately, a cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. But Gaara, this brat is stronger than you," Gaara stated, his teal eyes devoid of any light, slowly panning from Sasuke to Goku. This was the critical deviation in another timeline. His gaze would have remained locked solely on Sasuke Uchiha, the sole individual in the group who projected a comparable refined power, the power of a prodigy from a famous clan. But Goku also was an anomaly. He projected a pressure, a raw physical aura of power that was utterly alien to the shinobi world. Where Sasuke's strength was a sharp-honed knife, Goku's was a crashing tidal wave. Gaara's gaze could not analyze it, of course. He didn't have any dojutsu, but Shukaku, the beast sealed within him, could feel it. It was a power that didn't play by the rules of their world, and that made it dangerously fascinating. His eyes lingered on Sasuke for a moment, recognizing the Uchiha's latent potential. But then they shifted, locking onto Goku with an intensity that was both curious and predatory. He saw the unrefined stance, the lack of formal training, and the balanced, untamed energy that had moved faster than Kankuro could even react. "What is your name?" Gaara asked, the question directed first at Sasuke. "Sasuke Uchiha," Sasuke replied, his own voice tight with wary pride. Gaara gave a barely perceptible nod, then his head tilted almost imperceptibly, his sand shifting with a dry hiss as his focus transferred completely. The question came again, identical in tone, but now carrying a weight that made the very air grow cold. And you, what is your name? The question hung in stunned silence. All eyes from a terrified Sakura to a calculating Haku turned to Goku. Naruto gaped, confused as to why the creepy sand kid was giving the other new weirdo the same attention as Sasuke, and not him, Naruto Uzumaki. Haku's breath hitched, his mind racing through the implications of such a dangerous individual taking notice of his friend. Goku, blissfully unaware of the honor and the threat inherent in that question, just grinned, meeting Gaara's dead-eyed stare with unwavering excitement. I'm Goku. You seem really strong. We should fight sometime. In that moment, the trajectory of the upcoming Chunin exams was irrevocably altered. Gaara, the ultimate weapon, had not found one interesting opponent, but now two in this timeline. While Goku's presence in Konoha was a whirlwind of loud challenges and shattered training posts, Haku was one of quiet assimilation. He spent his days not in the sparring grounds, but in the village's vast archives and libraries, a silent scholar amidst the bustling shinobi. It was during his study that he became fascinated by a discipline far removed from his own, which was genjutsu. His own power, the ice release, was brutally tangible. It was a force of nature, sharp, cold, and final. Genjutsu, by contrast, was a whisper in the mind, a phantom pain, a battle fought on a landscape of perception. For Haku, who lived a life of constant vigilance and hidden threats, the idea of a weapon that could neutralize an enemy without even drawing blood, or, conversely, expose their deepest fears without a single physical blow, was profoundly compelling. It was the ultimate expression of control, and control was what he desperately needed to protect his chaotic, straightforward friend. His research led him to Yui Kurenai, a Jonin renowned as Konoha's foremost genjutsu master. He approached her one afternoon after her team's training, bowing with deep respect. Kurenai-sensei, he began, his voice soft, I would be grateful if you could enlighten me on the principles of genjutsu. Kurenai, intrigued by the polite ice-wielding prodigy, agreed. They sat at the edge of a quiet training ground. Genjutsu is often misunderstood as mere trickery, she explained, her crimson eyes holding his. In truth, it is the most intricate of the shinobi arts. It requires three things: flawless chakra control, advanced intelligence, and a deep understanding of the human psyche. She formed a single hand seal. And for a split second, Haku felt the world lurch, the scent of cherry blossoms filling the air before vanishing. I did not change the environment, Kurenai said. I merely introduced a foreign chakra into your perceptual system, tricking your brain into believing that it was so. To do this, my control must be surgical. A brute force approach would be detected and dispelled instantly. She went on, detailing its terrifying scope. It is not just for creating illusion. A master can use it for mind control, planting subtle suggestions, or even taking over a target's motor functions. It can be woven into traps, lying dormant for weeks until a specific trigger is met. It is the art of crafting a prison from which there is no physical escape, because the prison is within the target's own mind. Haku listened, his mind racing. This was the key. He saw its application immediately. Disorienting pursuers, creating diversions, extracting information without torture, or even calming a rampaging Goku if his wild power ever threatened to overwhelm him. But the first hurdle was immense. This surgical control you speak of, Haku said, a hint of frustration in his normally serene voice. My control is insufficient for my nature transformation. But this requires a fineness I have not yet mastered. Kurenai nodded. Then that's your starting point. Before you can weave a single illusion, you must learn to manipulate your chakra with the delicacy of a spider spinning its web. Only then can you begin to learn how to spin dreams and nightmares. Haku bowed again, a new silent determination settling within him. He had found a new path to strength, one of subtlety and intellect, perfectly suited to the shadow who guarded the sun. The news crackled through the team with electric energy in the main hall of the academy. Kakashi looked at his Genin, his single eye crinkling. You will be participating in the Chunin exams, he stated, his tone leaving no room for argument. Naruto whooped with joy. Sasuke's smirk was a blade of satisfaction, and even Sakura felt a thrill of terrified anticipation. From the sidelines where he and Haku had been observing, Goku's face fell. Chunin exams? That sounds awesome. Sign us up, Kakashi. Kakashi's gaze was infuriatingly placid. You can't, Goku. You're not a registered Genin of Konoha. You have no team, no sensei, and no official standings. You're a guest, not a participant. The rejection hit Goku like a physical blow. His shoulders slumped as he watched, dejected, as Team 7 filled out their application forms. The prospect of a huge forest filled with the best young fighters from multiple villages and was barred from entering was unbearable. And then, of course, we fast forward to they do the little written exam, and now we're about to do the Forest of Death. So, later, in their small apartment, a familiar, mischievous spark ignited within Goku's eyes. Hey, Haku, he began, a wide grin spreading across his face. If they won't let us in the front door, we'll just have to climb the fence and sneak in through the back. Haku, who was preparing tea, paused, a sense of foreboding settling in his chest. Goku, what are you planning? They said the second test is in a big forest called the Forest of Death, right? Goku's excitement was palpable. We can get in there. We'll wear masks so no one recognizes us. We can find all the strongest guys and have real fights. And we can test Naruto and the others. See if they're really ready. Haku opened his mouth to protest, to list the countless dangers and diplomatic catastrophes that this could cause. But he saw the unbridled hope and competitive fire in Goku's eyes, the same fire that had pulled him from the snow all those years ago. To deny him this was to cage a force of nature. With a soft, resigned sigh. That was a pledge of loyalty. Haku nodded. As you wish. So, man, that's going to be the next episode. And also, I think I'm about to start creating, like, super chats and stuff. And I'll talk to you guys about that later. So, let me know what you guys think. Catch you on the next one. Force of Death will be the next episode, man. See you next time. Peace.